Hello and welcome. My name is Vicky Boucher. This is a Wealthy Life podcast. In this episode, I'm going to retrospectively build a framework around the last 25 episodes and show you how they fit together and how they focus on three things. These three things are fundamental to your success, whether in property or generally in life. They apply to both. So even if you're not interested in investing in property, actually listening to these podcasts, you can pick out the stories of basically successful business owners. What they all have is the right mindset. Now, that's such a loaded term, isn't it? The right mindset. It implies the wrong mindset. But the truth is that if you do not get your mind, your thoughts, let's use thoughts, your thoughts to work with you and support you on what you want to achieve, then it is so much more difficult. And people might go, well, hold on a second, I can't control my thoughts. But that's just a thought. What if you could control your thoughts? What if you could guide your thoughts to be more supportive? Maybe I'll pick up on that in another episode. Let's have a look. Okay, so sit back and listen. Maybe have a pen and paper and definitely go back over the last 25 or so episodes. Re-listen and see if you can pick out the three highlights that I'm going to share with you in this episode. So in the last 25 episodes, I believe that what I've focused on are just three things. The first I could sort of group into the word no excuses, or the two words no excuses. Then I suppose the second I could group under the word strategy. And the third I would group under the word money maths, or two words money maths. And what I want to do is just explain to you how important these are in everyone's lives, really, but particularly if you listen to the stories of the people, the amazing people that I've interviewed over the last 25 episodes, you can really start to hear these coming out. And it's almost as if I wish I'd recorded the 25 episodes and then recorded this as the intro so that you could listen to them in advance. But maybe if you've gone through those 25 and you haven't been aware of this, it might be interesting to go back and re-listen with these three thoughts in your head. But also, as I explain these three concepts to you, you might go, yeah, I remember hearing that. I remember picking up on that. And that in itself is interesting because if you have picked up on these things about the mindset, the resilience, the lack of excuses of people that are just getting on with it, the idea that they had this bigger picture, and of course, that they understood the maths of things, then maybe that says something about you. Maybe those things are present in your life. Maybe you're already aware of them. If you haven't picked up on them, does that mean, and I'm not saying that it does, but does that mean that you're not really aware of your mindset? You're not really aware of your bigger picture, your strategy, what you're trying to achieve? Or maybe you're not really aware of, or like a lot of people don't like the maths, which is why I keep referring to it as money maths, because people tend to like money, but they don't necessarily like the maths. So put the two together and you do like it. So let's look at this concept of no excuses. So whether you're a woman, whether you've got a family, whether you've got no money, there is ultimately no excuse. And if you just take, for example, two sets of the people that I spoke to, Stephanie Taylor and Lisa Oliver, listen to what it was like for them starting out. My story, for example, I was made redundant and I was the mother of two small children. There really is no excuse because if we can do it, you can do it. Listen to episode 108 with Hayley Andrews and listen to her challenges. The point I want you to get out of these stories is that you can do anything that you set your mind to. And that's why understanding what's important to you is so key. Most of the time, we're driven into action by getting away from something, and that makes us uncomfortable. And this, in coaching terms, if you like, is called away from motivation. So there's two things that drive us into action: towards motivation and away from motivation. The problem with away from motivation is it's short-lived. So I am feeling really hot because I'm putting my hand near the stove, will make me remove my hand, but doesn't necessarily teach me a lesson. As my children showed me, you can put your hands back again, and you only learn the lesson in that moment. And as soon as your hand is away from the heat, you've forgotten the lesson. But if it's towards motivation, if there is something positive in front of you, it acts like a magnet and it pulls you forward. But sometimes it's very difficult when you're just in the middle of your life to think of something, let's just overemphasize it because it doesn't have to be this, but so amazing that it becomes this magnet that it pulls you forward, pulls you out of where you are. That's powerful. And depending on where you are right now, you might not be able to think of something that powerful to pull you out of the situation you're in. So you stay where you are until things get bad or uncomfortable or miserable. And that gives you that little bit of a shove. If you can, at that point or now, choose to work with someone that has the skills, like I do for my clients, to pull you forward towards something that is actually something that you want to achieve, but maybe you just don't believe that it's possible for you because you're stuck in some loop or other. That becomes the towards motivation. That becomes the magnet that pulls you forward and keeps pulling you forward. And you know why? Because actually, in all honesty, you never really reach there because you find something better beyond and beyond. That doesn't mean to say that you're not satisfied. It's just that once you're no longer in this place and you're moving towards somewhere else, you can see better options. Imagine yourself slowly climbing up a mountain. When you're at the bottom of the mountain, you're there in the thick forest. You can't see any view at all other than the trees. As you climb, you start to see that there is a way out of the trees. So that's your first view. Then you break through the trees and you start to see all the treetops of where you've been. When you get to the top of that mountain, you then see the whole world for what it is and the opportunities that are there for you. So what I've been doing this year is I've been working with all my clients to explore their values, what's important to them, because that helps me understand what's driving them. And it's fascinating to see how some want great lives. They're really clear about the lives that they want to live and what's really important to them in terms of core values. So they want to be in a trusting relationship, or they want to feel valued or appreciated. But then it's also clear that while they know how they want to live their life, or they know how they want to be treated and what's important to them, nothing in there hints at the finances that are needed to achieve or support the life that they want. So their thoughts can only be a dream. There can't be a plan, because without the money, and I'm sorry to do this, but I mean, without the money there, our society runs on money. Without the money there to provide a home, which is the fundamentals, the food that you need, the clothes on your back, and how you're going to provide those basic needs, never mind moving on to actually fulfill the dream life that you want. If you don't understand the maths, then it's very difficult to get yourself to a point where you can actually live the life that you want, because it's not there for you. So that's why my background as a qualified NLP coach, or practitioner is probably a better word, can really help. And I take them through that process to start to align the dreams and their values so that everything else becomes easier. And I think if you listen back to all of these episodes again, you'll see where things started to slot in place for everybody that I've interviewed, whether Stephanie, Lisa, Haley, Cyril, even all of the financial guys that I interviewed. And again, think back to the interview that I did with Rachel Troughton and working with family. It's so obvious when things start to come together. And if you can look from the outside, what you start to realize is that your values are aligned. And I think Rachel's podcast really ties that one in at the end about working with family, because if your values aren't aligned, then no partnership is ever going to work. So the second thing I think really comes out of all of these interviews that I've done, is the need to have a strategy. Now, some people will call this a plan, but the word plan to me is really the action that you're going to take once that you've got a clear direction, your strategy, your map. It's like the postcode in your sat nav. You need to understand where you're starting from, and you'll need to understand where it is that you want to go to. And those are some of the first things that I check in. And that destination of where you're going to, in all honesty, can just be a rough idea. And that's perfectly fine. And as I've just said, it's a rough idea, because once you start to get above the treetops, you see what's possible. And once you see what's possible, you might want to enhance your destination. It will get better and better the closer you get to it. I mean, if you think about my story, I was originally driven to look at some way to never be, see, the away from bit, to never be in the position where someone had control over my money again, whether that was my boss or my ex-husband. So that's, you see how that's away from. I didn't want to be in that situation again. And that gave me the motivation to move forward. Then I found investing in property. And before I knew it, I was in a position where I could effectively retire at the age of 48. I no longer needed that boss. I had the money coming in that would sustain me in, all right, not the wealthiest of lives, but a life where I didn't have to work. And now when I look at myself, I feel that I have such a wealthy life that I can choose to do what I want with my time. I can choose to spend my time doing what I love with those that matter to me most. See how it's changed. Originally, it was away from. I don't want to be at the beck and call of a boss. I don't want anybody to control my money. Then I achieved that, and I was in a position where I had control of my money. And the next thing I had was the ability to see above the trees, to climb that mountain, to see what the possibilities were, and to create my life, my wealthy life, based on my values, filtering out what I saw and picking out what I loved, which for me is all about nature, travel, as you know, loving my tomatoes, loving my travel, scuba diving, of course. One other one that you might want to go back to and listen to, which is really from the season before this, is actually episode 94. And that is a question of, or an episode whose question is life meeting your expectations? And that might be a great place to start, because creating a strategy for your own future requires a real shift in your mindset. And when I emphasize the word your own future, often I ask people what they want, and they give me a list of things, and it's to take care of their parents, to look after their children. And that's awesome. You know, we all want that. It's almost, without being rude, unless you're some sort of psycho or what do they call the guys that are in the buses? Oh, I forget the word, but you know, unless you're some sort of high functioning psychopath's the word I'm looking for. So unless you're some version of a high functioning psychopath, of course you're going to want to take care of your family. But you can't take care of your family unless you've taken care of you. And the way that you take care of you is through your finances, through your health, and that includes your physical body and your mindset, and actually having some joy in your life. So, is your life meeting your expectations? And if it's not, maybe it's because, as I was saying with that first point, that your values aren't there. What I'll do at the end of this podcast actually is I will give you a link through to the values manual. Download it, work on it by yourself. But if you feel that you want to work with me on that, one of the things that I am setting up later in the year is to actually work with a group of women to take them through the values manual so that we can learn from one another, and you can be supported to create a really powerful set of values that will, I guarantee, if you use them, help you achieve whatever it is that you want. And that's why I always in this podcast talk about mindset. Although this podcast is about property, is about investing, is about money, very little of that is possible unless you have the mindset. And I know I keep using this term, the right mindset, but it is about aligning your thoughts so that they support you. And I think what I'll do is I'll make that the focus of this next mini series. So there's a mini series coming up over the summer. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to work on talking to you about more of this, aligning your thoughts and your mindset. Back to the point of this episode. So the third thing that I believe came out of these interviews is that concept of money maths. And you know how I love a bit of money maths. So understanding how crucial the numbers are is vital to everything. And for example, whether you listen to Sean the tax guy, whether you listen to my great friend Jay Rooney around financial planning and listening to all of those sort of pros and cons of pension versus property investment, all of these people have properties themselves. Craig, our brilliant property accountant, has a property portfolio of his own, and I've known him since, I think we worked out 2008, pretty much the same time as Jay. The point is knowing the maths of your plan before you start it will totally revolutionize your strategy, your investment strategy, the wider financial strategy that you're looking at, but also the bigger strategy. Because if you understand how you can make your money work better for you, you will create a better financial strategy, which will then involve you picking certain investment techniques. And my investment technique, as we know, is investing in property. That's going down the line, right? So we're going to have a financial strategy that leads us to an investment technique, which is really the plan that you implement. But actually getting your financial strategy right, knowing that you have these resources and that if you made them work harder, you would get this financial outcome, opens up the wider strategy, actually propels you up the mountain so that you get clearer vision. So many metaphors here. I must be mixing them and you must be totally confused, but do stick with me. Definitely, if you get anything out of this, go back and listen to the last 25 episodes. So one that I think that you should also pick up on is listening to Cyril Thomas. Now, Cyril is a rare beast. He's clearly some form of entrepreneurial genius. If you listen to his story out of university, he is a rare dude. But what Cyril's story of the pub proves is that you can still have a punt. You listen to everyone else and you still give it a go because something in your gut tells you that your communication skills will be able to pull you through. You have a baseline knowledge and understanding of investment, and you know that if you can get the numbers right, you can make something work. And I think that's also there in the conversations with, well, way back in the conversations with Rachel, but very definitely in the conversations in this recent batch with Hayley, with Stephanie, and with Lisa. And I suppose I had a punt in some of the early days. I didn't clearly understand the maths in the way that I do now. And that's part of the process of learning any business, any skill, is it's getting better at it in the job. But what if you could work with someone who escalated your money maths ability right at the beginning? That would mean that you didn't necessarily have to take quite so much risk when you were taking a punt. I mean, certainly Cyril's pub story is not the very first deal that he did. He already was an experienced investor and businessman at that point. So if you listen to everyone that I've interviewed, and I've told stories like this as well, you'll hear about a deal that went wrong or a deal that surprised them when it went right. We all have this, and we're all still standing. It's the challenges that are exciting when we look back on them and go, phew, that was lucky. When in fact, what we mean is, wow, the money maths really worked out well there, didn't it? Think about your life. How many times have things aligned and gone wrong and surprised you? And sometimes you're faced with challenges and they don't work out, but you learn from them. And in learning from them, the next time a challenge faces you, you have more tools to draw out to beat the next challenge and be more successful. So as I said all the way along, whether you're interested in investing in property or not, you can see the skills that come out here, managing your thoughts, recognizing that all challenges can be overcome, understanding the importance of money maths as well. So really, if you look at this, you can see that there are no excuses. In this group of 25 episodes, there are really three things that I wanted you to pull out, to recognize, and to go back and to listen for. So number one is a mindset of no excuses that is backed up really with supportive values. Okay, so I've cheated. I've cheated, and that's really three things in their own right. And we'll do those three things in their own right in due course. But that idea of getting your thoughts to align to support you is really important. So maybe less about mindset, no excuses, and supporting you, and more about having supportive thoughts. Let's narrow it down to two words. And then the second thing that I want you to look at is about strategy and understanding the difference between strategy and a plan. Strategy is the big picture. This is where I am now, and this is where I want to get to. And that's literally what the strategy is. I want to get to there. Then you work out the plan, the bridge that takes you from here to there. So strategy eventually leads to planning and implementation. It sets that overall direction. I use the example of a sat nav. It's the thing that takes you on the way. The good thing about that sat nav metaphor is that en route to your destination, you can actually stop along the way and enjoy the view. You can, when you stop, actually realize that maybe there's a slightly different direction that you want to go in. I know lots of particularly young people that I speak to who'll come out with how they want to be a millionaire. And that's just because it sounds a good number. But these days, having a million isn't that much. It's plenty, but it isn't that much really in the big scale of things. When you look at the concept of a millionaire is someone who is uber rich. The uber rich have much more than just a million. So when they set out and they say, I want to be a millionaire, or like that person I told their story, they want to have 100 properties. That's what they think they want to achieve. And the great thing about the sat nav is that as they move in that direction, they go, do you know what? I'm really valuing this. I'm really valuing not have to work. I'm really valuing being my own boss. And they move in a slightly different direction. If you remember Ross, I interviewed him probably way back in the first 100. He wanted to leave work, but then he didn't leave work. And in the end, having said he wanted to give up work, and he very definitely didn't want this when he started, he now runs his own business. And that was not the plan. But as I said to you, sometimes you have to have this away from. I don't want that. I don't want to work for anybody else. I think that's often a common theme. And if you dig into it, it's often because you don't feel valued or appreciated. And that can be, sort of spiritually as a person, I don't feel valued and appreciated, but also it can be financially. The other thing is it's often about the loss of time. And so you're looking for a strategy that gives you that, but en route, you might find other options. The point of the strategy is it sets off that clear first direction. And of course, last but not least is understanding how the money works and knowing that you can leverage what you have to make it work harder. So you don't have to work so hard, so you can spend your time doing what you love with those that matter to you most. And understanding, I think if you are going to get into investing, whether it's property or whether it's shares or whether you take up trading or anything else, understanding the tax implications, understanding how to do the accounting right at the very beginning is so, so important. And of course, I've probably done 3 or 4 points in there at the same time. So let me summarize the summary. Having supportive thoughts, having an initial clear strategy, still does need to be clear, and understanding the maths of your strategy. I still don't think that was 3 words, but I think you get the point now. So, look, what I want to do here, as I want to do in every single podcast, is put a little whoosh into your life to get you to achieve whatever it is that you want. Maybe sometimes to give you some ideas. Maybe, like with these last 25 episodes, to inspire you with the stories of friends that I bring on so that we can share stories and you can go, wow, look at that, that's possible. Or I definitely don't want that, but it's made me think of something else. I hope that the whoosh that you've had out of this episode is the energy to go back and re-listen to those last 25 episodes. Let me know your favorite. Let me know what you would like to hear more of. But above all, listen for those things. Listen for the way that people were thinking. Listen to their strategy. And when it sort of evolved, was it there right at the beginning or did it emerge later? And then listen to the more factual, if you like, episodes that explain how important the maths is and understanding how the maths and the money works and how important that side of being successful is. And that's not necessarily about business. That's just generally about life. Understanding how money works will make your life a lot easier. Thank you very much for listening, and I will see you next week. So the main goal of this episode was to build a retrospective framework around the last 25 episodes so that you could go back and listen to them in a different way. But if there's one key action that it would be incredible for you to take out of this, that would be to go and download my values manual. We'll put a link in the show notes. It's a free resource on my website. There's plenty of free resources and workbooks on there that you can go and explore. But look at the values manual and work through those exercises so that you can really become more aware and more in touch with the beliefs that you hold and how they might be supporting you or not. And if you're stuck with this and if you find it a challenge, then book a call and I'll do what I can to help you, or watch out for the new course that'll be coming in a couple of months where I'm going to get groups of you together so that we can work through this in a way that is supportive and you can learn from one another. So download the values manual, listen to the last 25 episodes. In fact, please re-listen to all the episodes. Let me know what was your favorite. Give me some feedback. What do you want to hear more of? And of course, please follow, like, please leave a review. These are so important to other people coming along and looking to discover new podcast episodes. Thank you very much for listening, and I will see you again soon.